Okay, so this is a map of Brazil. So it's a huge country. So I'm only have the eastern part. So the this trip my wife and I took in August this year was our second time to Brazil. And the first time we went was some 17 years ago because I actually had my birthday there. So, but it was in May 2007 back then. And we went to essentially mostly the same locations. So the largest city in Brazil is São Paulo and Rio de Janeiro. So those two are actually fairly close to each other. I think I last time I took a flight was like less than 1 hour between the two. But São Paulo is the commercial hub. It's kind of like New York City. So this both times we flew in there. In the 2007 trip, we actually flew from then to Cuiabá, which is the gateway into the Pantanal, which is inland. It's a huge wetland area. And then after that trip, the whole group went to the Iguazu Falls, which is on the border between Brazil, Argentina, and Paraguay, like three countries. There's a huge river in the middle. I was seeing some pictures and we had a lot of fun. So this time my wife wanted to go back to Iguazu, uh, but this trip is different, even though with the same company and actually the same two leaders we had 17 years ago. This was mainly a Jaguar trip in the Pantanal area. But we decided to go to the Iguazu Fall first, so on our own. So we went there for a couple of days. So it would start from there and a little bit of landscape. Whoa, I cannot advance the slide. Let's try this. Okay. Uh, Iguazu Falls. So we took a helicopter ride. So this is an area view. Again, is on there's a river on the border. So on the left side of a picture is Brazil, and right side is Argentina. So we got there, and so after like long international flights, so we just went to bed, and then the next morning we stay on the Brazil side, and the next morning our guide took drove us across. There's a bridge over to the Argentina side, and then we took a train somewhere over here. So this is the main Iguazu Falls, and I don't know, you can see that that's a actually a metal walkway so you get off the train and you can walk all the way out here to the top of the falls on the Argentina side. And so we went there and we got really wet that day, and the weather was not so good that day. Um, on the previous trip, we have taken other walks, and then you can see these little areas also. All right, and then after that, we took the train back and went back to the hotel, and there was a bird park in the Iguazu area on the Brazil side. So we went there in the afternoon and photographed some birds, but those are all captive birds. Now, looking at this picture, there are actually two hotels on either side. And initially, our travel agent, she wanted to book us in this hotel. And I found out it was like a 600 some dollars a night. So it's kind of expensive. So we end up staying at a hotel just outside the park, still very nice and close to the falls. The last time we went with the group and we stay on the Brazil side at this hotel, and that's also like $600 a night. Anyway, uh, s- so then the following day after the helicopter ride, we walked down and close to the falls on the Brazil side, and I took some pictures. And we have some videos too. It's the water is really rolling, and I got quite wet, so I had to protect the camera gear and all that. And then we went to the bird park, and we saw a scarlet ibis. Now, this is obviously a captive bird with bands on the legs. This bird actually lives along the coast of South America. So that remember the Pantanal is inland, so we wouldn't have seen this bird on this trip, but we saw it at the bird sanctuary. Actually, the first time I have never seen this bird in the wild. First time I saw one was back in the 1990s. I think we saw it one at the Baltimore National Aquarium. So it's the second time I saw one. All right, so back to the Brazil picture. So after the trip to Iguazu, we flew back to São Paulo and then to Cuiabá, and which is the gateway into the Pantanal. So from there we go south. Okay. So this next one is a more detailed map. Cuiabá on top, and then we drove down. Okay, the area to see the Jaguars called Porto Joffre, and down here and it's a dirt road and very slow. You'll see in the next picture. So we drove from Cuiabá at like halfway, and this is like from like 6 a.m. to like noontime. And we did stop a couple of times to take pictures of birds and other wildlife. Okay. And then we stayed here for a couple of days and took some pictures, some boat rides. And then we did another like 4 or 5 hours down to Porto Joffre. Okay. So as we drove from in this area, you'll see some of you may have seen this picture. There's an arch that goes into the Pantanal area, and you see it's the dirt road. So we had a little small bus to take of us. We had a group of eight plus a couple of two leaders. So the bus was going like 15 miles an hour. It's pretty slow because of the road conditions. And there are like on this road, there are like over 100 wooden bridges similar to this. Now here they were also building a concrete bridge, but we were still using this wooden bridge, and it's not really quite paved all the way. It just have boards for the two t tires, so it's kind of flimsy.
Is it
All
interesting?
right, yeah, and they're like well, not everyone's this long, but they're literally over 100 this kind of bridges. So it's a little scary. So I asked them to stop and I want to take a video
Oh,
uh, of the bus crossing.
you want to eat your dinner here watching it?
Yeah.
You want to?
So I do have videos. Yeah.
Okay, I'll just shop your food and
So, sorry, can you please mute yourself as the speaker?
yes, you're welcome to.
Excuse me.
Carry on.
Okay. So we went to this first place, Rio Claro. And then we got on boats. Actually, this is a boat from Porto Jeffrey because you see there they painted Jaguars onto the boats. But we have similar boat rides at both locations. So what we do is we get up really early, like 5 o'clock, and have breakfast, and then we leave around 6 a.m. and we can watch sunrise over there. And then, of course, again, the objective is to see jaguars, but we saw a lot of birds on our way. Okay. Okay, we saw scarlet ibis. Again, that's not a pentanal, but this one is buff neck ibis. First time I saw one. Um, obviously it's ibis, but the coloring is kind of interesting. Okay. And along the river, there are anhingas. So these are Uh, I've seen them in Florida and Costa Rica, etc. I think it's the same species. They look like cormorants, but the beaks are different. The bills are different, but it's a different type of birds. Okay. But they do have cormorants down in the Pantanal. Is called Neotropic cormorant. The behavior is similar to the double crested we see in the Bay Area, right? So they dive down and catch fishes. So this one got a fish, and I saw some video also. It took them like just a few seconds to swallow the whole thing. So looking at cormorants, I always wonder, like sometimes they catch some really big fishes, and I swear there's absolutely no way they can swallow them, but they they always do. So it's kind of interesting, okay, to watch. And then we saw some herons. The first time in the Pantanal, the Kokoi herons. First time with.
Thanks, yeah.
Do we hear some echo, or maybe I.
Yes,
No,
Louisa and Jumbo are not muted.
Yeah,
Jumbo,
can-
you're not muted.
Louisa, could you mute?
Did I mute?
Yeah, could you mute? Because I think you can. I Louisa's my wife and she's in a different room, but I guess she can. Okay.
Jumbo also needs to mute, and I think we are hearing some echo because of that.
Okay, thank you. All right. So the herons there are Kokoi herons that I last time I went didn't even notice the difference at this time. Now I added a great blue. I This is the great blue on the left side. It's a Bay Area bird. Looking at the background, I probably took it at the on San Antonio Road, that area in Palo Alto. And they look very similar, but the Kokoi heron, you see the top of the head is all black, dark, and the neck is white. Okay. But otherwise, size and behavior is very similar to the great blue we have over here. And next picture, yeah, we got one. We have some boats and they throw. I need to have full disclosure. They throw fishes into the river and then the birds will come down and catch them. So this is a Kokoi heron getting a fish. Again, size-wise and behavior-wise, they are very similar to the great blue as far as I can tell, but the coloring is slightly different. And then as we were sailing along the river, and I saw this Rufous tiger heron. Looks like it's trying to catch some fish or something with the neck extended. Okay. Sunbitten. So again, walking along the river. Okay. And then we saw some birds of prey. Um, Black-collared hawk. They also feed them with fish, and then they just fly down and catch them. And the flowers were blooming in the background, so it's kind of nice that day. So it's similar to the hawks we have in California. And besides this one, they also have a they call it a great black hawk. We have a juvenile there, which it's not quite fully black yet. Okay, and we saw quite a few of those as well. Next one is the crested caracara. First time I saw those were in the Falklands in the southern part of South America, but I believe we have them in Texas as well, so their range is quite extended. And our two leader is he previously was a ER doctor, but he has studied biology all his life. So I asked him like, why are there like tumors on on these birds? He said no. The After they eat a lot, the esophagus would expand, and it's like a temporary storage for their food. So both of them look like this. That I had never seen before. Although those birds are quite common in the Falklands, and I've even better pictures down there from down there. Okay. Great area. Just had a glimpse of this. So it's similar to the ostrich or emu in Australia. Ostrich from Africa. I think I used the image looks kind of noisy. I think I had to use very high ISO in that occasion. And they have these storks. They're huge birds. And interestingly, they usually build their nest very high up on trees, but they also come down to the river to get food. And then along the river, we saw some wood rails. Kind of interesting. Looks a little like a jacana with at least similar type of feet. And then we went to a farm. On the way back, we stayed a couple of nights at a farm, and they have a bunch of bird feeders and a lot of birds. Um, these few is similar. one. And then these two are the bare-faced curassow, and this is the female. I think I've seen similar ones in Costa Rica last year. Uh, the male is all dark. Okay. But I don't have a picture of them together. I think not sure the species is exactly the same, but they're very similar in Costa Rica. Okay. And a couple of types of kingfishers. This one is a green kingfisher. It's kind of smallish, but it's hard to see the scale. But they also obviously go down to the river to pick up fish. And then the ring kingfisher, this one is about twice as big as the previous one, and they hover around looking for food. Okay. Yeah, these kingfishers are different from what we usually see in the U.S. Okay. And they have black skimmers. I believe these are the same as what we see here. Uh, For skimmers, they skim the surface of water, so the lower part of the bill is longer than the top. I was talking to Sri. He was talking about photographing in Fossa City. So we went there one afternoon. It was low tide, and then I got a lot of kingfish. I mean skimmer pictures in Fossa City, and they were skimming too. But it was kind of crowded over there, so that the background was quite cluttered. Large-billed tern. So I had never seen this bird before. So I don't think we have them in the U.S. And then there's some macaws. There's several species, but we mainly see one type on this trip. Usually you see them on trees and try to feed on nuts or sometimes fruits. But in this occasion, we saw them by a river and trying to drink. And interestingly, the two of them they took turns. I'm not sure the other one was standing guard or not. So it's kind of interesting. And then for smaller parrots, we had this monk parakeet on a tree. So there are several species that I'm not that familiar with them, but we also saw this type. This is called peach front parakeet, and we saw a bunch of them. See, it's kind of peach and blue color, and the body is various types of green, and they were also drinking on the river. Okay. Toucan, I suppose a lot of us have seen them in Costa Rica, etc. All the tropical areas, Costa Rica, I think Ecuador, I've seen them. So yeah, those are pretty common in Brazil as well. And they have, I think in Costa Rica, there are three types. And we also went to Costa Rica, I think. But actually, we were there this time last year. So we saw three types of toucans. Arasaris, and they're trying to get fruits in the farm. So beautiful birds. Okay. Now I have two pictures of the great kiskadee. Um, so I got this one first. It's in some vegetation, mainly saw the back side, but the front side is yellow. So it's kind of interesting. So I have a front view and was singing something. Okay. Tropial. So yeah, there's some very colorful birds. So I took a few pictures of these. Um, this is kind of similar to an Oreo. And then we saw a vermilion flycatcher on a wire. Uh, First time I saw a vermilion flycatcher was actually in the Galapagos Islands. I was kind of far away. Beautiful red bird, and I didn't get a very good picture. So that was way back in 1995. I went back and tried to get pictures. But it was last year we saw one in the Merced National Wildlife Refuge, so not far from the Bay Area. So we saw one over there, and then we saw a couple of them in Brazil on this trip. Okay, and then when we were looking for jaguars, suddenly when two leaders stopped and he wanted to take a picture of this tiny bird. Is ma marsh tyrant. So very small bird. I guess that we don't see them very often, usually hiding in the bushes. It's kind of like a maybe a little bit larger than a sparrow. It's pretty small. Okay. All right. So I think that's pretty much all the birds we're gonna see. Now we went back to this. Go back to this. Oh, okay. Jump a little ahead. Remember mentioned that we went to Porto Joffre, and there is a pretty nice hotel there. So we stay there, and then they have this arch, and that leads to the dock, and then the boats they're waiting. And if you pay closer attention, some of the boats they have a cover they can bring up, so because it's very hot over there, and it's and the sun is brutal at noontime or in early afternoon. So they have that sun cover on top. So so the way it worked, I mentioned that we to see the jaguars, we did. So we stay here for a total of 6 days, 6 nights, and then we have 5 days to do daily trips, 2 trips a day. I mentioned that we got up at 5 a.m. every day, sometimes 5:30 maybe, have some quick breakfast, and then we left around 6 a.m. And the morning is the more productive trip because it actually a little bit cold in the morning at 6. And that usually we go all the way to probably 11:30 a.m. or something, and it start getting warmer and warmer. So that's the morning trip, and then we go back to the hotel to have lunch, and then we rest a little bit about 3 p.m. and we would come out here again and board the boats. And the afternoon session is probably 2.5 hours, and we had done by and it gets started getting dark by 5:30 or so. Usually the afternoon is not as productive, so a couple of people they would after like 2 days they would skip the afternoon session. I got most of my pictures in the morning. Okay, so let's see. Okay, this is I have GPS on my cameras, and so every picture I capture, at least with those cameras, I have the GPS location, and I go to Lightroom, I can see everything on the map. So this is the river. Okay, and Porto Joffre is here. Unfortunately, it's blocked by. Okay, these numbers are from Lightroom. That means I took like 25 pictures at this location. I have just taking picture of the building and the dock, etc. And you can see like we go some areas and we went to the tributaries, and then I took like 300 some pictures and even 500 pictures because we saw jaguars mating in this area. And then we went up. So one day we saw a jaguar kill and go all the way up here. Took like 1 hour boat ride. So yeah. So you'll see instead of staying in a hotel, there are some houseboats along the ways, maybe here. And some people decide to stay at houseboats. I'll talk about that a little bit. Okay. So besides jaguars, birds, capybara is another animal that's very common down over there. Is the world's largest rodent. So it's the size of like a pig, but it's actually like a mouse or something. Capybara is from indigenous language. It means grass eaters. So you can see why They call it a grass eater because they just feed on grass the whole day. Okay. And so we saw actually some of these were just sitting outside the lawn at our hotel. Okay. Um, Another interesting animal we saw was the tapir. It's a very strange looking mammal and kind of shy. We saw a couple of them. This one I got several pictures, then another one it just ran back into the bushes, so I didn't get a whole lot of pictures there. Okay. And of course, another animal we saw was the caiman, and they are all over the place in the Pantanal, in the water. Okay. Now, I mentioned the capybara and the caiman because both of those are food for for the jaguars, and the jaguars would catch them. And we got to witness a jaguar catching a caiman. So it's kind of like the other way around, right? In Africa, you see the crocodiles, they would bring down huge animals, but here in Pantanal, the jaguars would hunt the caimans. Caimans are not as big as the crocodiles, but they're similar species. Okay, so a bunch of our boats went into the river, some of the small branch, and then because so we had boat traffic jams in the Pantanal. It's kind of similar to, I don't know, I assume a lot of you have been to Africa, right? And the safari vehicles, they have walkie-talkies so that the drivers can communicate with one another. And if there's any lion or leopard sighting, and then they'll radio everybody, and then all the cars will be surrounding the animals. So a little bit similar situation in the Pantanal. So we have a lot of boats just gathering in one area because they found jaguars. Okay, and so we got one drinking from the river, and it's this beautiful animal. And the first day we were there, we just found these two mating. The mating is very short; it's like a minute, but they just keep on doing it over and over. Our leader explained that the male is trying to stimulate ovulation from the female, so they just do this over and over. And so, good thing is there were a lot of photo opportunities. And then finally, we saw this one. You can barely see it. So the two jaguars, those two are supposed to be cousins, and one of them, it's not a good view, but you can see it caught a caiman. So it's like a crocodile, and then it was feeding on it. And eventually, the two share the food. Okay. Now I mentioned that we first time went to the Brazil Pantanal was back in 2007. During that trip, we did not see any jaguar in the wild, and we finally saw one in the zoo. So what happened was well, of course, the jaguars they already existed back then and around, but they were attacking the livestock because there are a lot of ranchers up and down the Pantanal, and they were killing the farm animals so that the farmers would hunt them down. So they were very shy. But I think so that was 2007 up to, and then, but in the last 10, 15 years or so, and gradually they realized that actually they can make more money from tourism. So nowadays the jaguars are well protected, and occasionally they still kill a farm animal, but it's the number is small. And but from tourism, I think the farmers, the ranchers, they make a lot more money that way. So the jaguars are well protected. Now, as a result, the jaguars are used to people now. So we saw this, and they're good swimmers, and we saw this one swimming across a river, and there were just boats on both sides, and people were taking pictures with, I think, phone cameras, and so they were quite close. So, like 20 years ago, we wouldn't see this. The jaguars were very shy, and they were afraid of people. So that's a new situation. Okay. And okay, so talking about Porto Jeffrey, so this is the hotel we stayed. It's very, this is actually, I think it was early in the morning, so a little foggy. And it is in the countryside, but every room has an air conditioner that's critical for that area because it just gets very hot. So as I said, usually we go out from 6 a.m. to like 11:30, go back and have lunch at noon, and then we rest for a couple hours until like 3 p.m. and we go out again. But the afternoon session is much shorter. It's not as productive. Okay. Now I mentioned houseboats. So instead of staying at hotels like that at Porto Joffre, and some people stay at these houseboats. And I guess there are pros and cons. I have never been on one, but we drove by several of them, so I took some pictures. And some photo groups they prefer to stay there. Now why? Now you look at we can look at the map again. Porto Joffre is down here where we stay. And so I took those 25 pictures of the hotel rooms and the docks, etc. Now we drove went up the river, we saw houseboats maybe here, this area. Now, if we travel all the way up there for that day, we saw the Jaguar kill, and that's like a 1 hour ride all the way back here. So if you stay up here, so each you can probably save like 15, 20 minutes. Now, just keep in mind, we go to do this like 4 times a day, right? We go up in the morning, come back down, and then afternoon go. So if you can probably save an hour or a little more if you stay on these houseboats. Okay, and but the cabins are smaller and probably not as convenient. So there are trade-offs both ways. Okay. All right, so that's about all the pictures I have. There actually a lot more birds. Last trip we went in 207, I think we saw more birds because we didn't spend as much time looking for jaguars. But it's a little different trip. But nevertheless, we still saw a lot of birds on this trip. Okay, are there any questions?
Excellent. Yeah. Thank you.
Mhm.
Actually, definitely open for questions. Uh, Maybe I can start. Can you remind us again, sorry, when did you go to Brazil and for how long?
Okay, this trip we went in August this year. Okay, the way it works. Okay. Okay. So I can stop sharing.
Yeah,
Okay.
sure. Yeah.
Yeah. Okay. The uh it's that area is very hot, the Pantanal. So there are really just two seasons, the dry season and the wet season. The dry season, actually last time because I had my birthday there, so last time we went in May, and actually that was still in the rainy season. But dry season
Mercury's
is
program
like,
was much more exciting.
I'm
Excuse
sorry.
me.
Mercury's program was much more exciting.
Okay, so the dry season is around like June through October, November. So the best time to go is typically these trips they go in maybe late June, July, August, through September. Yeah, the company we went with, they go, okay, back then, again, it's the same company we went to, and they just ran it once a year. And one group, this nowadays, they have like, I've seen them, they go, uh, okay, these years they have 4 trips back just one after another with the same group leader, and I've seen they have had 5 or 6 even. So that's throughout like July, August, September, and maybe late June, just one after another. Each trip we stay at. Okay, let's go back. Each trip we stay at Porto Joffre, that's the Jaguar place, and we stay 6 nights. And then remember from Cuiabá, we drove down and we stopped in the middle 2 nights. On the way back, we also stopped in the middle, different place, but similar area, and 2 nights. So the whole trip is about what we say 10 nights. It's a little less than 2 weeks. So, okay. So and then they ran what's 4 consecutive trips. So that's yeah, so that takes up like 2 months, maybe 2.5 months. Yeah.
May I ask which company did you use?
We went to with Joe Van Oss Photo Safaris. They are in the Seattle area,
Sorry, can
and
you just maybe type it out or send me an email and I can circulate
okay, so
that to
you mean
everyone?
yeah, it's Joe Van Oss. They specialize in photos of photo trips. Okay, actually, their website is photosafaris.com, so it's
Oh,
pretty easy to look up. I'll send it to you later on.
yeah,
So
yeah.
so when else? Yeah, so we have traveled with them quite a few times. Yeah, we so it was the same company, and they contract a local guy. It's called Paolo Butte, and so he let they send a photographer there, and then the local leader is Paulo. So he has his own company, and he lives in Cuiabá. That's the gateway into
Mm,
the Pantanal. So he's you can check out his websites too. So he runs trips. Yeah, yeah. There are a lot of groups that go there. We saw a lot of photographers on this trip. So, yeah.
awesome. And so this was mostly Jaguar trip, but you also were able to see birds.
Right,
But I'm
right,
sure there are a
right.
lot of bird photo through tours that happen in Brazil.
Yeah, actually, Paulo Butte, he's a bird expert. So he used to lead mainly bird watching trips for that area. But since the people discovered Jaguar photography, and so he's more into Jaguar trips now. Okay. Again, that's a more recent thing, maybe last 10 years, or maybe a little longer. Yeah. And that's why we went back because we didn't see any jaguars last time. We went to
Mm,
ranchers and saw a lot of birds down there. Okay.
excellent. Yeah.
Yeah.
So you've been traveling South America for a while now.
Uh yeah, I realized I had gone to okay, I retired last year, so we went into Costa Rica in November. I went to this year, April, went to Ecuador and the Galapagos Islands, and they're all, yeah, both locations that well. Costa Rica is well known, a lot of birds, and so is Ecuador. So, yeah, yeah, very interesting thing location. All those locations are pretty warm.
Yeah, yeah,
Yeah,
yeah.
yeah.
Do you have tips for what type of camera gear that you would use for this trip to
I
Brazil?
use Nikon, but I mean, modern cameras, most of the brands are very good. Canon's very good, Sony's very good. I've been using Nikon. I think I mentioned that I've been using Nikon since 1977, so it's like yeah, almost half a century now. So
Wow.
but I also notice a lot of people as they get become more senior and they prefer Olympus because micro four thirds so the
Mm,
sensors are much smaller, and so you're because of the so-called crop factor you
yep.
don't need as long and big lenses, so a lot of people seem to prefer that. uh, I seem to see a lot of people in the 70s, 80s, and they use Olympus. And they take great pictures as well. Yeah.
What about Zoom?
Zooms,
You
yeah.
using? Yeah.
Zooms. Okay. Yeah. Yeah. There are lot of choices. I'm more familiar with Nikon. Nikon. They start making full frame mirrorless cameras in 2018. And then they have introduced a lot of telephoto lenses. So if you're interested in birds, Nikon is now a good brand. And they have a few that's called Fastenal phase Fastenal lenses, and they are more compact because they use the lens technology similar to those they use in lighthouses. So the lenses are shorter. Zooms, every brand has a few. Nikon has a 180 to 600. That's like below $2,000, so it's relatively affordable. Sony has a 200 to 600, similar. And Canon's got a couple. They have a 100 to 500. I see a lot of people use. And more recently, they have a 200 to 800. But that's a slower lens. A zoom is f8. I
Mm.
mean, excuse me, I think it's F9.
F11. F11 actually. Yeah.
F9. Oh, but you're talking about they have a 600 f11 and an 800 f11. Those two are not zoomed, but they have a new zoom is 200 800 f. I think 800 is f9, and that's I think around $2,000 or something. Those two F11s are very affordable. They're below $1,000 and pretty light. But you're stuck at F11. Well, it's pretty slow anyway, but you cannot stop down any further. So I have some friends they have that. It's great to carry around. But I'm
I
kind of
mean,
picky. Yeah, so
my question was mostly for this trip, like for example, for Pantanal or for birds that you have, is there a focal length that you would recommend?
for this trip. Okay, so I brought my big lens. I brought a 600 f4
Mm,
with me on this
okay.
trip. I brought three telephoto lenses. I'm insane. I bring a lot of gear. I have a 100 to 400 zoom. So for some of those, remember we have that heron catching a fish. So
Mm,
some of those big birds and this fast action, I realized that I can't use a really long lens because it's hard just to put the subject in the frame. So for
mm,
something like the larger bird, 100, 400 zoom, and I think every brand has something like that. Canon has the 100, 500. That's ideal for
yeah.
birds in flight. I tend to use a shorter lens. Like I go to Shoreline Lake a lot, and the turns, they dive and catfish, and I use a 400 millimeter. It's
Mm,
because I have a hard time keeping the subject in the middle of the frame. So, I mean, it could be off to one side, but I crop, and that's still fine.
mm.
Okay. Yeah. But there are a lot of
Yep.
choices depending on how much you want to spend and how much weight you
Right.
can carry. Yeah.
Yeah.
The gating factor for me is well, yeah. Just how
Flight.
much I can carry is a big problem. So, yeah.
How far away are you from the Jaguars when you took those pictures?
Well, you saw that picture, right? The Jack was swimming across the river and the boats are
Yeah.
just like 10, 20 feet away. Remember, you can get fairly close.
Oh,
Yeah, they're used to people now, right? And they're not afraid of you and they're not going to attack you. I don't have any pictures with me. I saw a couple of the tourism board of Brazil for the state, and they have a couple of video teams. They take videos and they trying to advertise their state for tourism. So yeah, so and yeah, we were pretty close for that. Probably use a 400 millimeter lens. I mean, Jaguars are pretty big too. So
mhm.
Mm,
yeah, yeah. But for little birds, you want 600 millimeter or longer.
Yeah.
Yeah.
yep.
Yeah.
But again, I'm sure every brand is very good now. So yeah.
I have a general question since I just started for the little birds, since they are not very still, they'll be jumping up and down. So, do you take a video? Is it better and then take a still out of it, or just trying to catch the still pictures? So, I had a hard time going in Costa Rica to
Really?
catch those little birds.
Oh, I don't know. Do you handhold or use a tripod or something for
Oh,
any
handheld. I mean,
handheld? What
yeah.
what kind of lens and camera do you use?
It's an
Uh,
icon. And then
okay.
I didn't dare to take my big lens, the 600, and I just took the 70 to 300.
Okay,
Yeah,
okay.
Mm,
yeah. I
Yeah,
mean,
try
take
use something a
pictures.
little longer.
Okay.
Yeah, Nikon has a few of those PF lenses. They're pretty relatively lightweight. Yeah,
Mhm.
you have a DSLR or
Uh,
it's a mirrorless camera or
no, it's not mirrorless.
is
It's
that okay? Yeah. Uh, okay. Well, actually, in a way, it's good because the Nikon F mount, the DSLR cameras and lenses, they're kind of out of favor.
mm,
So you mentioned the 70 to 300, that's a
yeah,
DSLR lens. They have a 500 PF. And that lens, they announced it in 2018 was like $3,600, but now the used value has gone way down. It's like $1,500. You can get a good one. And that's a fairly lightweight lens and it's 500 millimeter. So
yeah.
that's quite
yep.
good
Oh,
if that's what you use. Yeah.
thank you.
So,
Yeah, but video is a little different, right? Because I shoot a lot of videos too. Video, you try to use a slower shutter speed. So if you take the crop from there, usually you get some motion blur. So yeah,
Not. I've done a lot of stills from videos.
really? Okay.
Yeah, do it
Oh,
and handheld too. So
handheld? Wow,
yeah,
that's tough. No, because I mean, usually I shoot like 4K video and 30 frames a second. So your
right.
shutter speed tends to be double that, right? So you use a 60th, 1/60th of a second. And if the bird is moving, that usually is too slow and you may get motion blur. I don't know, maybe you use a different shutter speed or something.
Yeah, definitely. And but also like you can do manual shutter speed as well, right? So you can control that. Yeah.
Yeah.
It
But
it
yeah,
does take a lot of effort though, right?
yeah.
Video is a lot of fun, but it is a lot of
Yeah, I mean, you talk about that because I shoot youth orchestra video a lot. So these days,
mm,
actually, I'll be doing two concerts this coming weekend. Yeah. So I shoot a lot of video. It's a different type of challenge. But for wildlife, I don't shoot as much video. I
wildlife,
stood.
especially with the
Yeah.
Sony. I'm also finding the Sony A1 handheld also works out pretty well, and I can remove a still from it.
Oh, really? Okay. Okay.
Yeah,
That's
yeah,
good. Yeah. I've done some I go to Palo Alto to shoot hummingbirds
yeah,
in
yeah.
April. And yeah, I've shot some videos there too. But yeah. Yeah. But
Aruna, where are
in
you shooting? Where do you practice, I guess?
Shoreline is the main
Okay.
place that I go to, and then just looking for, other spots and then just following some of the blogs and Facebook pages.
yeah.
Yeah.
Palo Alto,
So here,
along
I think that,
Embarcadero. That's the old meeting place for this thing. This meeting,
Encanto.
the what Lucy Evans. So outside there's a ranger station. And okay, well, Lucy Evans, if you go back to the road, there's a little bridge, right?
Yeah.
And then further down, there's a ranger station. So outside that, and a picnic area outside there, I think they have cut some of them down now. Unfortunately, there's are some pride Madeira plants, and so they bloom in late March through like mid-April, and they attract a lot of Anna's hummingbirds. So I go there and shoot hummingbirds
Yeah.
a lot in
David,
late
does
March,
any of
April.
oh, sorry, any
Go
of the
ahead.
people in this group go as a team to shoot outside or
So we talked about that actually. I think this is maybe something we should bring back. We talked about doing trips. It's
yeah,
hard to coordinate, but so if you go to the Santa Clara Valley Bird Alliance, the Santa Clara Valley Audubon Society previously,
yeah,
they do have trips. They do have mostly actually it's on working days, so I can never make it. There
yeah,
are some weekend trips. There are some weekend photography trips.
yeah.
So people have gone there. I've actually met a few people on those kind of trips also. And those are good. I was actually thinking maybe if the group is interested to do a group photo shoot, and
Oh,
because we have twice a year, we have bring your own photos,
uh-huh,
right? So we do that in April, and then we do that in September.
mhm,
And maybe for one of them, I would like to do it like announce and say whoever is interested, come out for a photo shoot, and then just share those pictures. I've
yeah,
done that with the youth birding group,
okay,
so maybe something that I can send out and see if there is interest.
yeah. That would be
And
good, I
then
think, just to know the,
yeah,
people and then new places that you have not been.
right, yeah, and I believe depending on where you are in the Bay, the Fremont Birding Group actually has a monthly tour. So Jason Tanner, who actually presented to this group some time ago, he holds a monthly tour, and it's not that. I mean, usually it's in the Alameda County, it's in Fremont,
Yeah, that's not.
but yeah, weekend. You can actually go early morning around. He starts around 8 to about 10:30 or 11, and you get to do a photo shoot. And he knows the spots very well, so he knows the birds very well as well. Jerry Ting used to run that group before. Now Jason is running it.
Perfect.
Uh,
Yeah.
and and I believe the Audubon societies typically have the San Mateo and the Santa Clara Valley definitely have trips.
Yeah, I think I've tried one of the Santa Clara one on the weekdays. But it's so hard to get into the weekend ones. They fill up so early.
They book pretty fast, actually. Yeah, that's very true. And I have a couple of people that I go out to to photograph, but it's usually on Saturdays, and it is extremely random.
Yeah.
Unfortunately, I just am able to figure it out only on Friday night. What am I doing? So it's an unorganized way to to do bird photography, but you know how it goes.
Yeah.
Yeah, I like the idea though. I think there's a lot of interest here. A lot of people have been shooting in the Bay Area for a while. They know good spots. So I can send an email out and see if there is interest.
Thank you.
Excellent. Yeah. Well, thank you. If no further questions, I think thank you, Shun, and I hope I'm saying your name right.
Yeah.
Um,
Fine.
yeah. Thank you. Thank you all for joining. And I will try and get this uploaded soon onto the YouTube channel and send it out.
Okay. Thank you, Sri.
Yeah.
Good
Thank
night.
you. And good to see you, Aruna.
Thanks, Sri.
Bye.